Welcome to Learn Math with Brian Sapinski, the epitome of math entertainers. I am a professional wrestling fan. I will forever carry that as a point of pride. But I do admit there are times when some people in the wrestling business do not showcase themselves in the greatest spotlight. And there's probably no one person that has brought out the worst in professional wrestling, both on camera and behind it, than Vincent Kennedy McMahon. For those not in the know, Vince McMahon is the owner of World Wrestling Entertainment, formerly the World Wrestling Federation. In July of 2022, he resigned as CEO and executive chairman of the board of directors after a wave of reports came in from the Wall Street Journal regarding hush money payments he made to cover up egregious misconduct towards several former female employees over the years. He was replaced as CEO by his daughter Stephanie McMahon and company president Nick Khan. Meanwhile, his son-in-law, Paul Triple H Levesque, Stephanie's husband, became chief of content, responsible for the writing and creative presentation of the television product. And in the months that followed, fans and detractors agreed that WWE's shows and premium live events had improved vastly. But despite this new era and the company changing for the better, the cynic in all of us continued to wonder, were we really rid of Vince McMahon once and for all, never to return? Well, in true Vince style, the answer to that was an emphatic no chance in hell. On January 5th, 2023, Vince, who is still the majority shareholder in WWE, rewrote the company's bylaws in order to place himself back as executive chairman under the guise of written consent. The intent of this comeback was to negotiate, among other things, the ultimate sale of WWE outright, which he succeeded in doing when it was reported on April 3rd that they would be merging with Endeavor, the company that owns UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, by the end of the year to form a new company known as TKO. So how was Vince McMahon able to vote himself back onto the board? Well, it has to do with exactly how large his voting power in WWE really is. It's so large, in fact, that it needs to be established that Vince McMahon is a dictator within his company. Now, you might be sitting there saying, hey, whoa, dictator, that's a very slanderous word to throw around and all that. Although you kind of got to admit that mustache that he's sporting these days is kind of dictator-like. Anyway, the thing is, that's not just a word that I'm throwing around. The term dictator is actually a discrete mathematical fact. Now, to understand why, we need to dive into the basics of how voting power actually works. In any type of major business or corporation, the people who have the ability to vote on major decisions, known as the players, each carry a vote. In the case of WWE, the votes are controlled by the shareholders, of which there are hundreds of different corporate entities and financial institutions that hold shares in the company. And as it's been told to me by Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics, the only major decision these shareholders actually participate in is to vote who stays on the board of directors each year and who doesn't, which is convenient to our whole discussion here. However, since it's going to be very impractical to try and represent every shareholder in this example, let's simplify the argument and say that these 8 players symbolized here are the only people in the world holding shares in WWE. So they are the only 8 people that get to vote on anything WWE is going to do, even if it's just the board member election. Now, in many cases, the votes these players have are not of equal stature. Rather, they are weighted, with each player's vote counting for a specific number of units or percentage points of the total weight distributed. In WWE's case, the shares carried by each player would determine those weights. When a player votes yes, their weighted vote counts toward the overall score that a decision or motion gets. In order for a motion to be approved, the group of players who vote yes, known as a coalition if they agree to vote on a motion the same way in advance of the vote, must carry a total weighted score equal to or above a specific amount known as the quota. This quota can range anywhere from a simple majority of just over 50% of the total points available to the entire 100%. Depending on the quota that is established, it begins to become possible for those players who hold greater weights to be able to block motions from passing by simply voting no. These players have what is known as veto power. For example, suppose these were the percentage weights of the 8 WWE shareholders, with Vince's vote being worth the most at 40 points. If the quota for a motion only required a simple majority of 51 percentage points, it would be possible for Vince to vote no on a motion, but a coalition of other players say yes, and their total votes achieve the quota. But if you were to increase the quota to, say, 61, then Vince's vote becomes an issue, because without it, the other players can only achieve a total score of 60, which is not enough for a motion to pass. Thus, Vince would have veto power. And as the quota increases, it's possible for other players, starting with the one with the next largest weighted vote, to also gain that same veto power. But Vince's voting power goes one maddening step further. See, when a player has veto power, they can cause a motion to fail by saying no. But saying yes by themselves does not automatically make a motion pass, as they still require other players to be part of their yes coalition in order for the total score to reach the quota. But according to Brandon's reports, Vince McMahon holds a staggering 81% of the total weight amongst all shareholders. And when a single person's weighted vote, such as Vince's, is so high that it meets or eclipses the quota required to pass a motion all by itself, that player is defined as being a dictator. This then renders everyone else's votes, even if they individually have an otherwise significant weight, completely powerless, making them what are known as dummies. Yeah, I bet you never thought that was a math term either. In short, everyone else can say no, but the motion still passes because the dictator says, yes, I want to do this thing, so we are therefore doing this thing. Thanks to the extreme weight of his vote, Vince McMahon used his voting power from a shareholder standpoint to push WWE into a corner and give them no choice but to let him back in, despite reports that the board at the time unanimously told him no. And ever since the merger was announced, things have only gotten worse, as Vince has reportedly been starting to overrule creative decisions for the TV product again, despite his promise that he wouldn't get in the weeds anymore. And reports are even saying that his power is only more likely to grow the closer that we get to the merger. Although with 81% of the power already, how could it possibly get any worse? Don't answer that. Now, Triple H and his creative team are supposedly trying to find ways to block Vince from doing what he's doing, and who knows how successful they'll be in that. But now I'm getting away from my key point a bit here, because while we as wrestling fans want to see a television product that's both well booked and creatively makes storyline sense, that's a completely separate conversation from the direction that WWE is going to take as a company after the merger. According to Brandon Thurston's reports, Vince, as the executive chairman of WWE, will own about 18% of all the TKO shares once the merger is complete, while Endeavor will own 51%, and their CEO, Ari Emanuel, will become the CEO of WWE as well. That means that Ari is going to be the only person that Vince reports to, the only person above him, and therefore the only person with more voting power than Vince will have. Now, how much of that 51% is represented by Ari himself is not totally clear at this time, but one thing definitely is, and that is that none of this conversation ever happens if not for one man who does what he does, not for the shareholders, definitely not for the fans, but for him himself. And that is Vince McMahon, the dictator of WWE. As the man who wears this shirt is known to say, tell me when I'm telling lies. My thanks to Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics for helping me put this video together. Please check him and his crew out at the link in the description below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give the video a thumbs up and share it with anyone that you think will enjoy it, be they math fans or wrestling fans, anybody. Spread all the love around. And especially don't forget to subscribe to this channel for a lot more discrete math content that is coming in the near future. What you saw here today was just a small taste of it. And that's the bottom line, because Brian Sapinski said so. That does not sound good at all, does it? We'll see you next time.